Welcome in to another episode of the My Two Bits Gators Football Podcast. I am your host, Ben, joined as always by my other host, Mr. Randy. Randy, how we feeling tonight? How's a win feel, buddy?
Man, a win feels great. I tell you what, it feels a lot better than we had last time,
Cool.
trying to escape out of South Carolina, but it does feel fantastic.
That's right. And that's a good reminder that the last time we got to do one of these after a win was October 14th, 2023. Or
That's
for
all.
us, it would have been October 16th is when we recorded, right? So it's been a minute. It's been a minute since we got to do one of these after a win. Just a couple episodes for us in between there and then. But you know, it's good. It's good. It's been a long time coming. So glad to have it. Don't care who the opponent was. It's nice to have a win. So have really going to soak this one in and enjoy it tonight and have a good time talking about some stuff and really enjoy the parts that we get to here. So as always, we'll get things started off with our intro, our mission, our vision, and our agenda. So as always, our mission is to provide factual analysis of all things Florida Gator football. Our vision is to have unfiltered conversation around the product on the field, as well as recruiting and overall coaching decisions. Our analysis will be based on review of film, and while we will express opinion, that opinion should always be based in some form of fact. We will also evaluate strategy and tactics and discuss our observation of player personnel decisions, as well as on-the-field execution. So for our agenda, again, back to our regular game script here. We'll start off with our Oh My section for the exciting plays of the game. We might have had one or two of those. We have to keep these to a minimum with games like this because otherwise we'll be talking about them all night. We'll then go on to the offense and talk about the Chomp segment. Then we will review our defense and our Gator Bait segment. Then we will talk about our complaints from the game, such that there might be in the visor throw segment. We'll then talk a little about recruiting in the Hatchling segment. Then we'll talk about the culture of the team and the pride of the Sunshine segment, culture of the team and the program really overall. We'll then talk officiating in the Move Back You Sup segment. And then we'll wrap things up, kind of give the overall state of the team, where we think we are, where we think we need to go for the remainder of the season, play a little keep it or pitch it for this week with Florida West. I will only be referring to them as Florida West for the entirety of the broadcast, just so everybody knows. For those that do not know that joke, they took quite a few, took might be a stretch, quite a few players and coaches decided to transfer there, go there, choose to move there, whatever the case might be in the offseason. So because of the vast quantity of personnel, players, whatever you might want to call it, that decided to move over to the opponent in the Aggies that we have this weekend. I am only calling them Florida West, as I stated. We are calling them Florida West. So thus is the explanation for why our opponent this week shall be referred to as such. So we will then do our new segment, briefly talk about the sims I have run in NCAA 25 on the console this week. Give some thoughts on that little interesting tidbit this week. Really only one that I found very interesting, but I will share that. And then we will close things out and wrap it up. So with that, let's get started with some Oh My from this week. What do you got for me, Randy? What were your favorite exciting plays? Because goodness, there were plenty to choose from. What do you got for me?
There were plenty, my man.
And actually, really... I forgot. I apologize. One thing before we get started, we do have a little extra musical entertainment for this program, and there is something we want to start with before we get into Oh My's. Kick that off for me. I apologize. I forgot about it.
I was wondering if you're ready for it. It's in queue. It's in queue.
Fired up.
Those of you who are at the game might remember it, so here we are.
So what I want y'all out there to do for me is say this, say go DJ, cause that's my DJ. Say go DJ, cause that's my DJ.
Yes, indeed.
And there you go.
Without further ado, talk to me.
I tell you what, man. A win. I don't like you said, the opponent, form, fashion, win is a win. A win is a win. So I tell you what, first one that flew off the charts for me was Jason Marshall and the effort that he gave punching the ball out on Samford's first possession.
For sure.
I can tell, especially in the first game, which we kind of want to forget, but the one thing that I'm liking seeing here on the defense compared to the past couple of years is more active hands, a lot more fighting for the ball, more ball hawking, as we would say, right?
Absolutely.
So So I think that is a phenomenal thing that our defense has worked on. Maybe Coach Harris has worked on them regarding that fact. But either way, great to see that. And guess what? He was able to punch the ball out. Phenomenal play. Next one I had, it was tough. It's kind of a toss up to me. I have DJ to Badger. I have DJ to DK. DJ down the seam to Hansen. DJ to Mizell. DJ to Trey for 65 yards. Glad to see him finally connect with Trey there in the second half. I tell you what, all those. Hey, B, did you know that the ball can be pushed downfield like that?
I did know.
Oh, okay, cool.
We haven't seen it in a while, but I did know.
Yeah, I had to do a double take. I had to, kind of shake my head a couple times and readjust my eyes. I know I don't have, the great vision that I had 20 years ago, but I'm like, wow, am I seeing things straight? No, but phenomenal pass plays. One of them stuck out a little bit more to me. It was more specifically the pass that he had to Mizell.
Yeah, buddy.
On the right side of the field. For those of you who remember that pass, particularly, he had to step up, shift, and really plant his foot into that pass to get it to where it needed to go. And so for me, the amazing thing was the way that he stepped up, the poise, the release. And again, Mizell didn't have to do that much to catch that ball. It was in stride. It was beautiful. He took a hit. So it was phenomenal. So that's the main one I'll call out, besides those 5 other pass plays that were absolutely great. And oh my is going to be welcome to the show, Mr. Gums.
Yes.
Had some phenomenal tackles for loss, but I think the tackle for loss in particular I'm talking about. George looks. You made the comment during the game as far as how big Burrow looks, but George looks phenomenal. He looks like a man amongst boys sometimes. And then the last one I'll point out is Shamir DK, the return game. Had a phenomenal return. It's really nice to see the impact of an analyst, of a coach. Anyways, someone putting attention to special teams. Congratulations, Joe Houston. You've made an impact. So let's see what else we can do.
Houston, we no longer have a problem. Thank you, Joe.
No longer. Yeah. So those are my call outs as far as oh my goes.
Love it. Good stuff. I like how you kind of snuck like 8 into 3 or 4 there. That's pretty good. I like that technique.
I hoped you wouldn't.
No, that's good though. That's good. I you know what? It needed it for this game. There were a ton. I mean, it's hard to choose. So it's funny you had that Marshall one. I really thought hard about putting that in, but there was just so many big plays that I on offense that I kind of had to stick with the offense on this one. All props to the defense though. I thought they played a very, very much improved game over the first one. Again, opponent is who the opponent is. You still have to go out there and play the game. Right? You don't just get to not show up and not try and not exert effort, because if you did that, they hang 50 on you. See 2 years ago. So, because we saw what happens when that occurs. So for those that don't know, Samford was here 2 years ago in the swamp and hung 50 in the swamp. We won 72-50. However, they hung 50. So anyway, to that end, my picks for this one are going to be mostly all about DJ as per the theme song there, but the last one isn't. But yeah, so we'll start off with right out of the gate, right? The second series comes off the play action, which I'll get more into that play later when we talk about the offense, but we've run that play many times, right? Naked bootleg to the right. We know the play design off the play action, right? We know the play design, except it was different. And I'll talk about why it was different later. However, we were in 12 personnel and you had a go route on the right side. No surprise. That's normal, except it was open because Badger's speed got by the corner. There was no deep safety and he was there. So it was open. Now, that's the difference in the opponent, is that the receiver was open, right? So I'll call that out. But what else is different is the absolute dime that gets dropped from over 50 yards of airtime and just gets laid right in the breadbasket, fully in stride downfield to Badger. I mean, what a ball. What an absolute ball to throw down there and hit him in stride perfectly with over 50 yards underneath it in the air. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I was just blown away. When I watched the replay of that, I was like, he did not have to miss a step. He did not have to slow down. He didn't have to change his route. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. What a beautiful pass. So that one for me was number one. Number two, you called it. This is the one we're going to share here. Without a doubt, in my mind, the best pass of the game. Not close. For me, this wasn't a dime. It was a quarter. And that was to Mizell.
Yeah.
The pocket awareness. They rushed 6. They brought both linebackers. If pocket was collapsing on the outside, he steps up into the pocket, didn't even see Mizell at first, then turned, saw him, pivoted off to the right side, kind of did a little jump step, replanted his feet, but not really. He was off platform when he threw this and just chucked it with all his force, right, that he was able to manage off platform, which again is what made it even more impressive, was he was not square, right? He was not throwing with what you would call proper mechanics for a standard throw, and still puts that ball perfectly to Mizell in stride over the defender, lays it out. All he does is catch it in the end zone. I mean, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That is next level for like 5 different reasons. Ridiculous throw. Absolutely ridiculous throw for so many reasons. I was floored when I saw that one. That one needs to be on every highlight film he ever has. I'm just blown away. Absolutely blown away. Again, competition didn't matter. Hey, Mizell was actually covered pretty well. That pass was just better. So just next level stuff. Really, really good. And the last one, I got to give it to Trey on that 85-yard TD scamper. We're calling it a pass. Okay, fine. You can take those yards away from Lagway if you want. It's obviously basically a running play. But because it's a pitch pass, it gets counted as passing yardage. Fine, take him away. Give him 372 instead of 456. Who cares? Ridiculous anyway. So the moves he showcased on that, the speed, the cutting ability, the quickness, the elusiveness once he was ahead of the defenders, just kind of little zigzagging to make sure they didn't catch up with him. I mean, everything was just beautiful to watch on that play, man. I hate saying it, but it's Percy-esque. I don't like making those comparisons, but it's there. It's there. It's there. I'm sorry, but it is. It's there. He's as close as I've seen in a Florida uniform since he was there. I'm not saying he is, but it's close. It's close.
Wow.
Really, really impressive stuff. So with that, let's get into offense. Really good Omize. Obviously, there were many more we could have picked. But let's move on and talk some chomp segments. So really excited to talk about this. I really dug into the film on this stuff and really kind of took a deep dive into it because I wanted to see, before I start talking about this, actually, Randy and I had a conversation about this, and we really kind of theorized, okay, is Napier going to do things any differently? Is he going to open up the playbook at all? Is he going to show us anything we haven't seen or don't normally see? Maybe I should say, not have never seen, but we don't normally see, because Lagway's in the game, because he has a dual threat quarterback, which is really what his offense is predicated on, right? His offense is designed for a dual threat quarterback. And we had one in Richardson, of course. However, Richardson's accuracy that year was not something about his comfortability in that offense. It just didn't mesh. I don't know what it was. I don't know what the deal was, but it didn't fit quite right. And we know that was not as good as AR can be. See this past weekend, if you didn't watch the Indy game, because wow, he looked good. And so the point being is I still just don't feel like we've ever seen the whole playbook. I feel like we saw some more of it this weekend, and I'll explain. First things first, QB rating and yards per carry, as always. So we've been doing this for a minute. We started game 3 of last year doing this stat, but we went back and did it for the previous games to talk about it. I've never seen a number this high. So we do it off the NFL QB rating, though I will share the college one with you as well in this case because it was ridiculous. The NFL QB rating goes from 0 to 158.3. Lagway's rating in this game was 153.75. 158.3 is perfect. Literally perfect. You can't do better than that according to the NFL scale. He was just shy of 5 points from perfect. Wow.
Bananas.
I mean, wow. For the record, as we've said about the college scale, it's kind of ridiculous. It can theoretically go to 2,000, right? You can just make up crazy numbers and it can be whatever you want. However, I don't recall ever seeing a number this high for a game, though there was another big one out of Clemson's quarterback this weekend, but it still wasn't as high as DJ's. 264.8 was his college QB rating. Those are large numbers in both cases, very large numbers. Just for perspective, Jaden Daniels averaged slightly over 200 as a rating last year when he won the Heisman. Now, obviously, you're not going to average that throughout a season, not making the case that he would. However, just for perspective on the college scale, to give you some perspective, I believe Jaden Daniels was right around like a 205 or something last year as an average. So just food for thought. So ridiculous numbers that we saw. Yards per carry, a little lower than what I would have expected in this game. Again, we took out team losses, though there weren't any, but I left DJ in even with sacks, though there weren't any sacks. So so that didn't matter. But we leave running quarterbacks numbers in. I did the same on the other side of the team when we went in there and did that. But it was 4.88 yards per carry is what we were looking at, which was a little lower than I would have expected. However, we made up for it with the passing game, as already mentioned. Just to give you an idea on yards per pass attempt, per attempt now, not completion, per attempt, 18.24 yards per attempt for Lagway.
Oh, boy.
Ridiculous, man. That's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. So, like I said, several key takeaways here, but because of the opponent and level competition, again, I'm going to focus just on UF execution and play design as much as I possibly can. So first and foremost, we did run and pass block better. It's hard to evaluate that against an inferior opponent or against subpar competition, but the execution of the fundamentals that I saw on film did look at least somewhat improved from what we saw the week before. It did look a little, some of the footwork, some of the actual blocking, hands-on stuff. It did look a little bit better. But again, you're not up against the same quality, so I'm just going to leave it at that and move on. Play design. This is what I want to talk about. Our first 3 deep passes came out of 12 personnel. Can you believe it? Because we've talked ad nauseum on this podcast about our difficulties with the route combinations we have seen in 12 personnel. However, unlike we typically see in 12 personnel, we actually had 3 or even 4 routes downfield despite only having 2 receivers in the formation. Because in 12 personnel, for those who may not be familiar, it's 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, 1 running back. That's the formation. It's 1 running back and 2 tight ends. That's what the 12 stands for. And then you have 2 receivers. So very unusual for Napier to actually send those tight ends, even 1, into a route, much less 2. It happened multiple times during this game. Not what we typically see. What we typically see, if you've listened to this pod at all, is a go route on one side and a drag underneath it on the other, and then a check down to the running back. That's the route tree, period. Every time, like clockwork. We did not see this in this game. It was remarkable. Really, really remarkable. We had multiple different routes. Once again, that first deep ball, you had a tight end on a drag under, and you had a wide receiver on a drag under. Now, why is that different? Because it creates a flood concept. Now you have 3 players all coming to the same side of the field. You open up coverage problems for the defense because you have the deep route taking the corner deep, potentially also taking the safety deep, and you're running 2 routes underneath. Now you make the linebacker and potentially the other corner or a safety or whatever might be left in coverage there have a coverage issue because you have 2 routes coming across the field. This creates a dynamic where you have to figure out, okay, who am I going to cover? Because usually you end up being in a situation where, especially if you're in a zone, you're not going to follow that all the way across the field. It usually opens up potential for at least one of those guys, if not both, to be open. That's the beauty of a flood concept, right? So that's what you really want to see in better play design. Loved it. Really, really liked it. Going forward, we had the pass to DK. I'm not going to go play by play on all these, but this one really impressed me. DK came in motion, ran behind the other receiver, then ran like a deep angle route across the field. On the underside, you had a hitch coming with one of the tight ends. You had a go route on the top side, which took that corner deep. And basically, what you did was, and then you had a drag on coming underneath that on the other side with the other tight end. So again, 4 routes in this tree. And the long story short is, you basically took this deep angle across the field that just ended up being wide open because everything else kind of sucked all the defenders off as you were doing this. It was really, really nice, man. I was like, wow, this is like good. I'm not used to this. Last but not least, the later in the game, most of the deeper balls came out of 11 personnel, which is what I really would have expected to see. 11 personnel being 1 tight end, 1 running back, right, and then 3 receivers. However, one of the things I saw, which was just awesome, is we had again 4 routes out of 11 here. The tight end and the inside receiver, being Badger and I think Arliss on this play, actually ran crossing routes across one another in the middle of the field. Can you believe it, Randy? A mesh concept? Like, we don't see mesh concepts. It's nuts. I know, right? An actual natural pick that happened there, though it didn't really work as a pick, but it didn't have to, because you actually had this mesh. And what ends up happening, you get the other guy, one's running a hitch, one's running a go, and then you get this mesh across, and you actually have Badger just come wide open, because it's just basically it's too much going on. It becomes very difficult to defend. I mean, not too much, but it's a complex and involved route tree that actually makes sense. I cannot tell you how many times we have watched this film and we're like, this is so elementary. This is so basic. This is easy to cover. No wonder guys are not open. And you've heard us say it if you've listened to this pod at all. We have talked, again, ad nauseum about how little we have cared for the route designs, the play design, especially in the passing game. I did not see that in a lot of the pass plays that I watched on film during this game. I'm very hopeful that no matter who the quarterback is going forward, though I have this feeling that it needs to be DJ to see some of this stuff, unfortunately. We'll get into more of that later. That we at least see some more of these route concepts going forward. And I loved at least getting to see it now. So that's my take on the offense. I'll leave it at that. I know that was plenty, but it really was great to see some of this stuff. And frankly, it's no wonder that it worked. So what do you got for me on offense, bud?
I don't know that I could add a whole lot more, B. That was really deep, multi-layered, like how this offense looks.
Yeah, it did.
No, but overall, good stuff. QB rating through the roof. I mean, are you kidding me? Just under 5 points from perfect, which actually meshes with the yards per carry at 4.88, oddly enough. Yeah, really, really neat to see, because I mean, we do run a lot of 11 personnel, a lot of 12 personnel, but I've never seen 12 personnel look like that.
No,
the look, the feel. No, not of Cotton, of an air raid-esque like offense. Not to say that we're going to get there right away, but it is what it is. I think I shared this with you after that game. Opponent or not, you still got to go out there and play. Great point. There was a sigh of relief, I think, from a lot of people.
Sir.
I had a big sigh of relief, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to go down a couple of stats here. We had 22 first downs. Okay, Samford 15. I would have liked to have seen at least 25, 26 first downs, but that's okay. Nonetheless, some of those first downs could have been converted, but 3 of them happened to be very long touchdowns. So that is what it is. 166 net rushing yards on 34 attempts. Conversely, we'll go over this in the defensive stats. Samford's very similar attempts, but not similar result. 3 rushing touchdowns. Love that. Passing, 466 yards passing.
Yeah.
All right. What?
Yeah.
I don't get that. We haven't seen that in a while, you know?
We didn't see that one coming.
No, not at all. Did not. Especially the way in which it was done. And then so when you look at total offense, 632. The one thing I will say, it is a big number. The one thing I will say from a play standpoint, 62 plays. So I would have liked to have seen closer to 68 or 70. Oh yeah, Samford, they hit 68. Would have liked to see a few more plays because, as you mentioned earlier, the hurry up. There were a couple different times there where we tried to quote unquote hurry up. A different look again because we clearly know that, especially in a lot of other games, 2-minute drill or not, we have not had much hurry to our hurry up. So that is what it is. I will call out the offensive line that initially struggled. It seemed like they were trying different things, and they were blockings. They were inconsistent at best. And then something happened midway through the second quarter, and either they got coached or something. Because I think I made a comment about Rob Sale saying, if this offensive line doesn't get better, Rob's got to go. I'm sorry if that offends anybody. But the offensive line got way better. They really used their physicality to really rough up that Samford line. So that worked out well. And the other thing, too, that was really, really neat to see was just the overall flow of the offense, the flow of everything. And it helps when you're launching the ball through the air. But even when the run game came, time to run the ball, Ball had some phenomenal runs. Johnson had some great runs, a great spin move, some touch there. Johnson was technically our bigger back. We're not looking at him to do some spin moves and whatnot. Great spin move, great vision to be able to get another 5-6 yards out of that particular run. The other thing that I will say is from a time of possession standpoint, again, folks, if you don't remember, last year we were top 5 or 6 in the nation in time of possession. Okay. Miami almost had his time of possession by 12, 13 minutes. So in this game, our total time of possession, about 26 minutes, 30 seconds. Samford actually had us on time of possession by 7 full minutes. Very interesting. And the other thing, the last thing I'll get to is, or the last two things is third down. I wish we had converted a little bit more on third down. We went 5 for 11. Yeah. Obviously, that's much better than an abysmal 1 for 9. I get that. I really would have liked to see that number closer to 6 to 7 of 11. Really on a couple key positions, and I get it. We had a fumble. We had some really unfortunate things happen on third down. There was a penalty on third down, a procedural penalty that really forced a punt there. And thank goodness Crawshaw only had to punt twice. So I thought that was great. Red zone scores. Red zone scores 4 out of 6. 4 out of 6, 66%. Really would like that to see that closer, 5 to 6, even 6 to 6. So, but outside of that,
in this game, it should have been. I agree.
Yeah. But again, outside of that, this was a much needed, and obviously we talked about it offline, but a much needed win, just for overall culture. Because let's face it, it was a brutal week. I mean, people don't realize how brutal of a week it was for Napier, for the staff, for the players. It was a damn brutal week coming off of last Saturday's showing, or should I say lack thereof. So it was really neat for them to get together and put the kind of output. Now, again, I agree with you. Hanging 50, I don't care if we had 72. Hanging 50 in the swamp as an FCS team, I was hoping to see a shutout. And, of course, we had a little slip there to allow that score. But to hang north of 40, you know what? It's all right. It's all right.
I mean, really, it should have been 50, right? The fumble messed up the 50. That was going to be 50 that drive, right? So it should have been 50. But, to your point, it wasn't. And, right, so it is what it is. But yeah, no, I'm with you there. It's a good get. And so a quick note on this before we go to defense.
Yeah.
There was a lot of teams, or there were a lot of teams, let me use correct grammar there, that this weekend that did not cover or even come close to covering their spread against very inferior opponents. Penn State, Bowling Green, 1 touchdown. Boise State, Oregon, a last-second field goal. LSU and Nichols State, I believe. Yeah, they won by 22, but they were favored by like 40-something. So Alabama and USF, I think they did actually come close to covering. I don't think they did, but it was a lot closer. But that game was tight. It was a 1-score game in the fourth quarter. They just pulled away at the end. So, there were a bunch of games this weekend. Oklahoma State and Arkansas, right? Like that double overtime. There were a ton of games this weekend that did not go as planned for a lot of vastly superior opponents. So before you go talking about how inferior the opponent was, right, or how not a test it was, or whatever else, right? Go look around college football this weekend and tell me how all those teams feel about their opponents that were not, superior. And then, of course, the coup de grace of that would have been Notre Dame and Northern Illinois. And for those that somehow don't know, Notre Dame lost at home to Northern Illinois. So that's the cherry on top there. So, and they were 37-point favorites, I believe. So we were 38, by the way, 38 or 38 and a half, depending on what you looked at. We won by 38. So I'd say we did a pretty good job considering. So let's move it on. Let's move it on to defense. What do you got for me? Actually, before we do, I do have the rating. Crittenton, or I think that's how you pronounce his name. Apologies if that's wrong. 80.58 NFL scale rating. So not good. Right, 100 and above is good. That's the scale. So this is significantly below that. So not good. We held him in check pretty well. And then with the sack removed on the one quarterback, the backup they put in at the end, that Jamarcus Weston nailed. That was a nice sack. And then the yards per, and then the team yardage that we took out, because we always take team yardage out because it's usually for loss, is why. So with removing those, it was 2.09 yards per carry, which is pretty outstanding, especially against a air raid team like this, much like Miami was, right, where they can really kind of move the ball around in the air with the quick game, and that can make the run game a little trickier to deal with. So really nice job by the D-line, by the linebackers, especially with a lot of subs playing in this game, especially near, as things got later in the game. I thought this was a fantastic effort there on those stats. So with that, take it away. Take us through your take on defense.
Oh yeah. The defense, I felt like it took them a little while to get into rhythm because, to your point, Crittenden, right, dual threat QB, running QB here, there, twitchy. I mean, he is fairly twitchy. I was actually surprised. He's got some really good athleticism. So credit to him. And so you know what? It kind of was like it took us a while to get settled again. I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go. Don't tell me this is going to be like a couple of years ago when we give up, 478 yards rushing. Please, no. And we found our gaps, found our ways to contest. I'm glad we did not do outrageously wild corner blitzes that resulted in, just being exposed. So I thought the discipline there was a lot better. I thought the way that the D-line imposed some of their weight was even better. And that's something we just didn't see them do against Miami, or unless they couldn't get in the rhythm to do it. Because I get Miami had a very big offensive line, but you can't tell me that they were that big to the point where we were outmatched by, 8 pounds. That's not going to make a whole lot of difference to me. Right. So that is what it is, right? Outside of that, Samford, 15 first downs. Okay. Not bad. Pedestrian, not terrible. Okay. Rushing, total net rushing yards, 61. Now, like I mentioned on offense, we had 166 on 34 attempts. Yeah, but Samford had 61 on 36 attempts.
Yeah, that's shut down running game for sure. That's nicely done.
Very nicely done. Speaking of shutdown, let's move on to passing. Net passing yards for Samford, 144. Between Crittenden and the backup, they went 22 for 37. So there you go. That was phenomenal there. Total offense for Samford, 205 yards. 205 yards on 68 plays. So I thought that was phenomenal to have. I mean, B, we were, we'll get there and keep it in picture. But either way, I was, and I think I may have shared with you during the broadcast, like, hey, keep it under 250. This would be awesome. And hey, 205. Again, great showing. Great
really, really, really good. Better than what I expected for sure. Again, this is a team that is not bad at offense, right? Again, level of competition or not, this team put up 39 points last week and over 400 yards of total offense against their opponent. I understand it's not the same level of opponent, but you still have to do it, right? They're not incompetent offensively. Again, they hung 50 last time they were in the swamp, and a lot of the same guys were on that team. Not all, but there were several players, especially a lot of the offensive line, actually, that was playing in that game. So defense absolutely looked better in this game. And it was a similar scheme to what we faced last week. Mobile quarterback, air raid, right? But we handled it much better. Again, not the same level of competition, but we handled a lot of the schemes and concepts better. We had better gap discipline, better rush lane discipline, right? On keeping the quarterback in check. We really only got out and ran, away from kind of a mishandled gap discipline on the pass rush once, right? That really only happened one time. Better job on the screen passes to the outside, right? We were better prepared for those. Better penetration by the D line. Again, as I mentioned, experienced O line, right? Even if they weren't as talented, they're experienced, and that counts for something, especially with an O line, right? So again, a lot of credit to the D line in this game. You already mentioned Gums, but I mean, Sapp played well. Boone showed up a couple times, which was solid. I thought Searcy looked good in this game, a lot better than he did in the previous one. But really, I think Gums is really the call out. He was outstanding. Though again, I like the interior play. Jackson and Banks looked really good. Barreau came in and looked good. I mean, they're a lot better, pretty much across the board. So, only thing I would say is the only real kind of gaffes I saw, the mistakes that I really saw were we had the blown coverage by Jakeem Jackson. Really missed that coverage on that go route. I don't know what he was doing there. Maybe he thought he had safety help and then realized he didn't. He backpedaled and almost got underneath it anyway, but he didn't. So that was a mess up. And then too many times we were playing, I believe it was probably some kind of matchup zone where the corner was playing man-to-man and then the safety looked like they were maybe supposed to be in some form of man, or maybe they were given a little cushion or something, right? Corner looked like they were playing press, and then the safety was kind of given, a lot more. It was DJ that did this a couple times, DJ Douglas that did it a couple times, and just too soft underneath, right? And that's what left open some of those 13, 14-yard passes we let him pick up there in the second half. And that's actually one of the things that helped him get down for that touchdown drive. So that was a little too soft on some of that like matchup zone stuff we were playing. And again, I don't know if we were playing split safety there or what we were doing, but it was a little strange because I watched it happen on one of the plays. Douglas is playing, you got Marshall up there in press man, and then Douglas is like 7 yards off the ball, and as soon as it's snapped, he just bails. I mean, absolutely bails out as soon as the ball snapped. And I'm like, okay, like I get if you're playing, if you're supposed to be like deep cover or something and you're trying to disguise it, but like you don't need to bail that fast. Like you can backpedal. You don't have to like turn around and run. Like that's a little excessive. Right. So it was just a little too soft, and it ended up leaving open some holes underneath there that were, just a little too big, and they took advantage of it. So anyway, biggest thing I would say is we talked about it ad nauseum last week, and it's about the third time I've used ad nauseum, so I'm not going to use it again. But we had communication issues all over the board, right? Especially defensively. Seemed way better this weekend. They definitely got some of that stuff cleaned up. It was difficult to tell for sure because they wouldn't have been as exposed against a team like this, but you could just tell there wasn't as much evidence of the linebackers, trying to move guys around on the line of scrimmage, trying to yell back to the safeties and wave their hands or communicate, right? You weren't seeing as much of that. It seemed clear to me that they were much more confident in what they were doing, that they had their communication, corrected in the pre-play before the ball was snapped. It looked much more composed. It looked much more connected. It looked like everybody kind of knew their assignments and what they were doing like they were supposed to. And that was really good to see. And then on top of it, you see the execution come through, right? So that's what tells me, okay, communication looks better. So that's really all I got on the defense. It was clearly a better game. Again, yes, it was an easier opponent, but they played better. I don't think that's in dispute. They just did. So really good to see that. It's going to need to continue. It's going to need to get better some more. But I was really happy to see that improvement. And those numbers are solid, right? I mean, I don't remember what McNeese put on us last year as an FCS team that we played them then, but it was more than 205 yards. I can tell you that. And we let way too many third down conversions go in that game, if I remember right. Too many missed tackles. very few missed tackles in this game. There was one drive, I think, in the third quarter or the fourth quarter where you and I both said too many missed tackles on this drive, but otherwise it was pretty clean. We were not missing tackles. It was better. It was just better. So good to see that. Good to see that for sure. So with that, we'll move it on here to visor throw and talk a little bit about what our complaints were from the game. I really didn't have a ton. The penalties weren't good. Obviously, we had some discipline-related penalties, but I have to put some of that on some very questionable officiating. We'll talk more about that in that segment. But there are definitely still some areas that could be cleaned up. Not too much procedural stuff. The one real procedural thing we had, penalty-wise, I'm not going to give them any flack for it all. There's a real, so when you're going to see this called again this year, I guarantee it, you're going to see basically an illegal formation call on an offensive lineman not being on the line of scrimmage. Apparently there's some new emphasis on this where they want these offensive linemen to be lined up right on the line of scrimmage, especially the tackles. And it's a very gray area to me how close or far away from the next guy you can be as far as being on the line, not being on the line. It's very gray. They're calling it a ton in the NFL. They've started calling it now in college. I saw it called like 3 times in the Tennessee-North Carolina State game, like in the same drive. It's ridiculous. So I don't know what the deal is with that call, but there's got to be some more clarity, in my opinion, provided around it, because right now it feels like very much the official's opinion, and that didn't work for me. You need to define it much more clearly than that. And I don't feel like it's been well defined at all by anything I've heard. So anyway, long story short, not going to give them any heartburn over that particular penalty. However, we called another timeout after a TV break. I don't remember if it was a quarter or an injury timeout or what it was, but we came back from a break and we had to take a timeout. 2 games in a row. It's got to stop. Can't do that stuff. We can't afford to take timeouts in that situation. Now, we had another timeout after the very deep ball to Badger because the whole team had to run 77 yards downfield. That happens. That happens in the NFL. I'm not going to give you a hard time about that. It's hard to get everybody reset in a situation where you have to go that far downfield, right? No sweat. I'm not going to cause a stir over that. And we had 2 more 40-plus yard gains that we didn't do it after, so kudos to him for that one. So, I'm not going to, like I said, not going to give him a hard time there, but that after a break timeout thing has to quit. It just has to quit. It's not okay. Last thing I got is going to be probably a big topic as we get on into this after we get through the rest of these sections and get to our kind of final thoughts, but I'm going to bring it up here. Napier's post-game quotes leaned into Mertz being the starter for Florida West this week and having DJ come in for, quote, some plays, but not indicating how much that would actually be. But knowing Billy the way we do, I'm kind of leaning into it won't be that many. That's a problem. That's just the problem. Now, I will say as a caveat, he spoke again today and was a bit more elusive about this as far as his plan goes. And I'll read a quote. For him to have, meaning DJ, for him to have the opportunity to be the starter, prepare with the ones, and then go and play the way that he did, the poise, the composure, it shows he's ready to do what we intend to do with him going forward. There's no doubt both these guys will make us harder to defend. I'm still taking issue with the what we intend to do part, because it sounds very much to me like, oh yeah, this was our plan all along. This is what we were going to do. We were going to have packages and stuff for DJ to run. Okay, that's not enough anymore. Seeing what we saw on Saturday, it's got to be more than 5 plays a game, Billy. I'm sorry. It's got to be more than that, because he is way too good to only come in and impact the game for less than 10% of the offense. I need him 20% of the plays at a minimum, frankly. I love Graham. I think he's a great leader. I think he's been great for this team. He really helped us through a tough year last year. I don't know where we would have been without him. And don't get me wrong, not that last year was some fantastic year, obviously, but it would have been a lot worse without Graham. And I love him, but he can't do what we saw on Saturday, period. He can't do it. So when you have a guy who can do that kind of stuff and another guy who can't, I understand there's other things for sure that Lagway can't do that Graham probably can do as far as reading defenses and understanding, concepts and different coverages and stuff. I'm sure that's the case. However, sometimes you just got to go with the guy who's got the gift. And man, that kid's got the gift. I am going to be really hard pressed if we do not give him at least some decent amount of snaps. So that's kind of a pre-visor throw for next week, but I'll say cautionary right now, but that's all I got. What do you got for visor throw, bud?
For sure, my man. No doubt. My visor throws are for very in alignment with yours, with the exception of two. But outside of that, Billy with a timeout after TV timeout can not happen.
Yeah.
That's it. You said enough. I was going to say.
That's it.
The one scoring drive that Samford had, I understand we had some unfortunate penalties there. Now, the other thing, I agree, some of those penalties shouldn't have been called. We'll get to that. But overall, that drive frustrated the monkey out of me because I knew that was our opportunity to keep them shut out. And I felt like regardless of what the penalties were and how they happened, we gave up a little bit towards the end of that drive. So I didn't like seeing that. So that was it. The next thing I'll call out, and maybe you remember this. I don't know if we messaged about it during the broadcast, but on UF's fourth possession, screen pass, bubble pass on 2nd and 12, poor blocking, loss of a yard, brings up 3rd down. Now, we were able to get bailed out because he had a rope of a throw to the sideline that was able to result in a 1st down.
You're talking about when he hit Badger?
Badger, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was that. And then on the 9th possession, it was a 2nd and 11. Same thing. Screen bubble left. Poor blocking. We picked up 1 yard and essentially wasted it down. Mm-hmm. I wish that if we're going to run that bubble pass, that script, whatever you want to call it, hit out, if we're going to run that, we need to have the proper personnel running it, or it just needs to be just ditched in the playbook. Or just
shelve it. Yeah, agreed. Absolutely.
We've seen too damn much of it, and I think other defenses have seen too damn much of it. Listen to the interview with Miami's defensive coordinator on that.
Yeah.
So anyways, that is what it is. So I'll leave that to rest. My last one, oddly enough, just like you, Billy, you know what? So here's the thing. I think that we have done Billy a solid in a lot of cases. We rode the Billy train, Sunbelt Billy, Bayou Billy. You know, I got a new name for him this weekend, right? That I will not mention on air. But either way, to hear some of the rhetoric, and I get it. You, as a coach, you have to keep the media guessing and this and that and the other. But sometimes I think it would be great if a coach can just call a spade a spade. And it was a tough week, but guess what? With that announcement, I fear it's going to be an even tougher week because there's going to be a lot of questions on, again, no, this is not about disrespecting Graham. Like you said, Graham did everything we needed him to do coming in here last year. But right now, there was a spark. There was a light. There was a flicker. There's hope, right? And it wasn't Obi-Wan Kenobi. So it's one of those things where why don't we ride that and have that go through? But either way, that's the end of my visor throw. Fairly dirty, fairly muddy.
Yeah, not as muddy as it was last week, though, obviously.
Sure.
So, yeah, with that, we'll move on. Let's talk a little recruiting. This is going to be pretty light this week. Any updates you heard throughout the week on the recruiting front for hatchlings here?
Not necessarily, fairly quiet. The one thing I will say is that, let's see, out of Orlando First Academy, 2026 safety Devin Jackson was on hand for the game. Winter Garden, Florida, West Orange High, right? 2026 athlete, Devontae Anderson. Both of those, we have a 3 and a 4-star athlete there. They were both in attendance, as well as a few others. We had some of the 3-star guys in attendance here for the 25 class, and we had 2 more 4-stars in attendance for the 26 class, although the 2 other 4-stars in attendance for the 26 class have yet to commit either way. So that's all I got.
Gotcha. Yeah, no real updates of consequence. Again, like you said, no real big name recruits come to this game, I think because of the lack of, I don't know, prominence of the game probably, and there are plenty of bigger games they can come to this year. Plenty. And really, all I would say is putting on a showing like this, and I don't just mean the scoreboard, right? I mean the way we did it, this many explosive, this many big plays, right? DJ himself playing as well as he did, always looks good, right? This is a good thing for recruiting. It just is, right? And we need to continue to put up good showings, especially in home games, because the rest of these home games are going to be bigger games. We are going to have more recruits at them, and we can't be doing stuff like we did against Miami because that'll kill recruiting. It just will. And we've got to put up better performances, even if they're not all wins, certainly, but they've got to look better than that did by a long shot, right? And that needs to continue, especially this week with Florida West. So, moving along, let's talk a little Pride of the Sunshine. I thought the team really looked good as far as their just overall attitude this week. Obviously, it's always easier to look better when you're playing well, right? But I thought they really rallied around DJ. I thought he showed really good leadership. They kind of showed at the beginning of the game. You were talking about it before we got on, how, he was kind of shown with the team all around him leading, kind of a pregame, talk there, if you will. Clear to me that Mertz's influence in the regard of a leadership role has really already taken a hold with him, right? And not that he didn't already have some of that, but Mertz has shown to be excellent at that kind of stuff. And I think, having heard what we've heard about him taking him under his wing and really taking to Mertz and the families getting along and all that stuff, like really, really good stuff there. So, and on another note, just kind of a little more relaxed note in relation to culture, it was really great to see the team have some fun during the game, right? You always talk about playing loose and free. I felt like we got to see some of that this week, and it was nice. It was nice to see them out there enjoying themselves. And I think that's going to be important because they need to be able to play that way, even in some of the more difficult games, because you got to have some fun and you got to have some of that mindset against the schedule like they're facing. We talked about this, right? That the culture has got to be good on this team to get through this gauntlet. And here comes the gauntlet. We're here. We've arrived, right? It's upon us. And this isn't even the worst of it yet, but these next games are critical to where we go, and I'll talk more about that later. But that's all I got for the Pride of the Sunshine. What do you got in the culture talk here?
Yeah, I dig it, man. DJ, I think what's interesting is a lot of people, a lot of the coaches, a lot of the people around him have said DJ is not a loud guy. He's not a big talker. But guess what? When time comes, just like you mentioned, right? Just like we saw before the game, he's in the middle. The whole team circled around him. Boom. At the line of scrimmage, in the huddle, breaking to start the play. You can see the cadence. You can see his voice. He's there. He's got the respect of the team. So phenomenal, great mentor and role model in Graham to make that happen. That's awesome. I love the fact that Mertz and Lagway spent the entire night before going through the entire game plan in the QB room.
Love it.
There. Every time DJ came back to the sideline, there's Mertz. High five. Nothing fancy, just high five. Good job, pat, this, that, and the other. Let him go, sit down, talk about what he's got to talk about. But at no point did I see Mertz turn away, look discouraged, just completely encouraging towards DJ, which is huge. Player disposition, yes, play free, play loose. But, man, at the end of the day, I saw players, especially on the defense side of the football, arguably so, with smiles on their faces compared to last week, right? And just loving every minute of being out there on that field. So, and that's the other thing. It showed in some of the play, 4 sacks, some great opportunities we had there on defense, getting at some fumbles, knocking the ball out. Again, overall player disposition, offense and defense, vastly improve. And the other thing that I like to say is we saw Trey a little bit upset going into halftime. Folks, Trey only had one target in the first half. And it was a poor target, period. To see him come out of halftime not with the head down, whatever they did, they talked about it, right? Even he and Lagway, they dapped up. And to see how much they connected in that second half,
yeah, that was great.
That was key because regardless of the fact, Trey is a big key to this offense, period. And so to have him discouraged going into halftime, seeing him discouraged, not a good look. Seeing him coming out of halftime, being involved, disposition back up, smile on the face, body language there, great.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they definitely, were able to address whatever it was. And, maybe it was like a targets, maybe it was something completely different. We don't know, right? I don't know if Trey was really that worried about that particular thing or not. Maybe it very well could have been, but it could have been something completely different. We don't know. We're not going to speculate, right? But he definitely did have a look and some body language that was not positive going out and much better coming back in. So, and then obviously had the second half he had, right? 141 yards. They talk about his biggest game. He did it in a half. So,
yep.
That's something that should be pointed out. But yeah, so with that, we'll move on and go from there. But I like those takes. I think that's really good stuff. Switch over to officiating here. Clearly not a good crew. Very inconsistent. I know you don't like this crew. I don't like this crew either. A lot of these calls were not very good. Biggest issues I had, I'll just call out two. There were more than this, but I'm going to keep it to two. Lack of reviews on potential targeting calls. They call the one at the end that I didn't think was, it was targeting. They got it right, but there were definitely others that should have at least been looked at, right? Especially the one against Lagway. Any helmet-to-helmet contact, especially if it's that blatant, should at least be given a look with the way the rules are now written, right? It should at least be looked at. It doesn't always have to be leading with the crown of your helmet. Like, that's not the only qualification for targeting. So you have to, like, I saw a targeting call the other day that just was about a launch. It had nothing to do with leading with the crown of your helmet, right? If you launch, you can still get called for that. So there's no reason why they should not have reviewed those plays where there was blatant helmet-to-helmet contact. So be it what it is, they didn't, which was foolish and wrong and is what it is, but we'll move on. And the other call I really didn't care for was the unsportsmanlike on Marshall for the throwdown tackle. Those tackles happen all the time. In fact, I saw one later in the game by a defensive lineman on a running back. It was literally the same tackle. But because it was slowed down and because Marshall, kind of had to work to pick him up and turn him over and throw him down, whereas the D lineman just kind of did it like a rag doll and was quicker, one looked much more severe than the other. Literally same tackle, though. One was flagged, one wasn't. It's silly. It was not unsportsmanlike. He was making the tackle. There was no whistle blowing the play dead before that. He was not out of line in making the stop that way. It's not an illegal tackle to do that. He just took the guy and pulled him over his shoulder to tackle him because that's the way he had him wrapped up. I thought it was a very foolish call by the officials to make that. I think the reason they did it is because it was a slower move for him to do that. And then, of course, the announcers are, you can't body slam a guy, which was ridiculous, but we won't get into the announcers. I had to mute that stuff. That was absurd at one point. But anyway, we'll move along. I don't think I need to listen to Adazio call more games, but that's neither here nor there. So what do you got for me on Move Back, You Suck?
I think you said it all, my man. The hit that DJ took to the back of his head, that defensive player clearly launched and used the crown of his helmet, the side of his helmet, doesn't matter, but he struck right. DJ right in the back of the head. Yep. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand how you get any more blatant than that. So that is what it is. Good call as far as the lack of review on targeting, because there's some other questionable hits, but that was what it was. Marshall throwdown tackle, I couldn't have said it better. Yeah, it took a while to develop. Marshall is not a lineman. Marshall's not as big as a lineman, right?
Exactly.
It's one of those things where, guess what? Yeah, it took a minute to develop, but regardless of the fact, shouldn't have happened like that. This crew, Lee Hendrick This is the white hat. This is the referee. Lee Hendrick has had some questionable games throughout his career, especially with a line judge, a guy named Chris Snuggs. I don't understand. Now, again, for perspective, I only officiate high school football. Yes, we miss stuff. Yes, we're human, but in high school football, you have a crew of 5 on the field. We don't have instant replay. We don't have eyes on the sky. We don't have a 7-man crew unless it's on the playoffs. And I'll tell you what, in the playoffs and the 7-man crew, you are catching 99.9% of everything, except for some of those interior holds. Outside of that, it's just despicable. Moving on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear you, man. And as always, I really appreciate your take on this stuff, having that unique perspective of doing this, at the high school level. I think that's really a cool thing to bring. So, so thank you as always for the perspective on that. All right. So yes, moving on with that. Give me your thoughts. Where are we at as a team? Where do we go from here? Give me we'll kind of get into the wrap up here before we play Keep It or Pitch It. And, yeah, give me your take. Where are we at right now? What's the state of the union?
So first of all, I think I said it prior, I'll say it again, a sigh of relief. It's just really good to have a showing like that. Like you mentioned against McNeese last year. Yeah, we beat McNeese, but we didn't really dominate McNeese probably the way we should have. We did that with Samford. It's neat to see the magic. It's neat to see that, the other thing too that you worry about, DJ Lagway is a young kid. So of course, with a young quarterback out of any other position, I don't care what people say, out of a young quarterback, the last thing you want to do is get him messed up 6 inches between the ears. So came out, had a phenomenal game, great way to lead, great poise, great composure, and great athletic ability, great arm, just great all around. I really wish we can see more of that going into Florida West. I agree with you. I refuse to call the school by its actual name. They are Florida West, period, with a little bit of combination of Duke. So in other words, they're confused.
I like Duke. So
truth be told, yeah, I hear you. It's really going to be interesting to see what happens in practice this week. Will Martz start? Yes. Will DJ come in? Yes, he better. The thing that I'm worried about is if Mertz does not have the flow, the continuity, the rhythm, the game general that we need him to be, is Napier going to acknowledge that? And will DJ play more? Will he get an opportunity to, as they say in the NFL with Russ, is he going to get the opportunity to cook? Because as we know, if you come in cold turkey off the bench, we worry about rhythm, we worry about the tone, we worry about a couple of those other things, right? So great week of prep for Florida West. Florida West has some personnel. They got some coaches. They got some players. Screw it. We got to come ready. We got to come prepared. And so I'm really curious to see what this week of preparation looks like for Florida West.
Yeah, no, I think those are all really good takes and all super valid, considering the circumstance here. So yeah, much the same for me. Great bounce back week for this team and a much needed win. Sigh of relief is a great way to put it, right? However, the tests get significantly more difficult this week and beyond, right? And we just have to rise to it. So I said this before the season. I didn't say it on the pod, but you and I talked about it. Miami or Florida West were must-win games. And what I mean by that is if you lost one of them, the other became a must-win game. So to me, this is now a must-win game because we lost, obviously, to Miami. If we have any chance of salvaging a decent season, we have to win this game because the next 3 after this, 3 of the next 4 after this become winnable, very winnable, I think, more winnable than this one, really, if you win this one. And therefore you have the chance to start 5-2. And if you're 5-2, then you can certainly go 6-6, certainly, and possibly 7-5, because you have a chance to go 2-3 in the back half of that nasty 5 games that we have to finish out, right? Well, it's a little less nasty now at the end, but it's still nasty. The 4 before the last one are tough. And, it's going to be hard even to go 2-3 there. It's going to be really, really hard, right? I think 1-5 looks more doable than it did before, but 2-3 is not easy. 3-2 is, it's hard to even see a world where that happens, and we're not doing better than that. We're just not, right? So it's important to be 5-2 coming through the first 7. And I'm not calling Tennessee a guaranteed loss, but they looked awful good the other night. Against a good defense. NC State, you can say what you want. NC State has a good defense. They have a good defense, and they got rickrolled. So, yikes. I didn't get to watch a lot of that game because it was on the same time as Florida, but I watched some of it. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty. Now, we don't have to get into analysis of that. We'll talk about that later. But at the end of the day, the point being is that's going to be a tough game. So it's really important that we win this week, next week, the week after the bye, and then Kentucky. Those wins are they're all kind of must wins in my mind. If we want to have any kind of a decent year, if we want to even think about going to a bowl game, we got to win those games. That's just what it comes down to, because we're not going to win the other ones. It just not certainly once we get past that second bye week. Again, 1-4 is not a bad finish to this season. 2-3 is a great finish to this season. So that's just what we're looking at. So anyway, moving on from there, I really feel that's the key and what we need to be going for. It may be a pipe dream, but I'm still hoping for the best and planning for the worst. Just is what it is. This is the motto. We're going to keep with it, and we're going to go from there. So keep it or pitch it. Let's do it. Last week, results. So we had from Samford, very simple targets, right? We said we were going to hold them under 350 total yards on defense. Randy kept that. I pitched that. I did not buy it. I knew this team could play offense, and I thought the defense wasn't going to have it together yet. And I was very wrong. So Randy gets the point there. I do not. Very nicely called, sir. We obviously, as already discussed, 205 yards allowed. Impressive. Very impressive. Again, this is not a know-nothing team on offense, so that was really, really good. Offense, conversely, we will be more effective this week, inferior opponent or not, and will produce over 400 yards. Randy did not buy that one. He pitched it. I kept it. As we know, 632 total yards of offense. By the way, the highest total since October 2nd, 2022, when we put 666 on the board. No bad omens there. Against Eastern Michigan, I believe, was the opponent. That was a Mullen game, but anyway. So I got that one right. Randy missed that one. And then we both got the kicker here. Pass rush will improve this week. Boy, did it. And be it from pressure. Will improve from the front 4 or blitzing, and we will have at least 3 sacks during this game. We had 4. We both kept it, so we both get the point. So for the season, we are now 4-2. I'm 4-2. Randy's 3-3. We're neck and neck. So here we go. On to Florida West. So keep it or pitch it. Number 1, Florida West is currently converting third downs at a pretty solid rate of 42.9%. However, they did have a FCS opponent as well in there, which obviously helped our average up some, not as much as it should have, to your point, but some from the terrible showing we had week 1. We are currently converting at 30%, but again, that stat is a little tainted because of the terrible showing at Miami. UF will convert third downs at a higher percentage. So we don't care if we keep them lower on defense, we're higher on offense, whatever. We will convert third downs better in this game than Florida West will on Saturday. Keep it or pitch it.
This was a tough one for me. And seeing what we did week 1, seeing what we did this past Saturday, I am not inclined to keep it. So I will actually pitch this.
I feel you. I get it. This is going to take something where I will tell you why I'm making my picks after, because I believe I kind of set these up in a way that I think make them almost keys to the game based on something that I think is going to be probably true. I'm keeping this. I'm not thinking we're going to do especially well here, but I think it's going to be critical that we convert enough that we stay on the field and sustain drives at least to a degree, and maybe more importantly, that we don't let them do so. I think this is really more about our defense stopping them from converting too many versus our offense having to convert a ton. I think the numbers stay low here. I think they're in the 30s for both teams, and I think we just edge them out. Just so you know where my pick's at, but I am keeping it.
Oh, Okay, so at the end of the day, it's still going to be low percentage. But
it's
okay,
going to be low, right. It's going to be low percentage, but it's about the defense stopping them more is where I have this and why. And I'll get to the greater point here later. So next, keep it or pitch it. So we're different there. So let me record yours real quick, actually, and put that down so I know your pick here. You are pitching it. All right. So Florida West is averaging 239.5 yards per game rushing. That is an inflated stat because they put up over 300 last week at home against McNeese through 2 games. UF is allowing 102.5 yards per game rushing. Quite good, actually, even with the Miami game in there. We didn't do badly against the run against Miami. Only gave up like 144, and then obviously we had the 60 some odd this week. So 102.5.
Yep.
UF will limit Florida West to under 160 yards rushing. So again, they're averaging basically 240, and we're putting the number at 160 this week. Under 160. Keep it or pitch it.
Keeping it.
Yep, I'm doing the same. I'm going to keep it as well. I think that kind of goes along with where we're at with the stat before, right? We're not going to be able to give up too many rushing yards if we're going to. Well, it doesn't necessarily fall in line with third down, but again, it goes to the overall theme. So again, I'll explain where I'm at here at the end. And I didn't tell Randy about this beforehand, so he doesn't know what I'm talking about right now.
I have no idea. I don't know.
Last but not least, is Florida West is currently allowing 317.5 yards per game in total defense or in total offense against them. UF will gain over 350 yards of total offense on Saturday. So 317.5 is what they're currently allowing. We will go over 350 in total offense on Saturday. Keep it or pitch it.
So we just have to hit 351, right?
Yes, 351.
Keeper.
Yep, same. All right. All right, so we're picking the same on those two, and then we're different on the first one. So again, we have an opportunity here to tie it up or go forward from there. So here is why I have all these, and they kind of align into this kind of grander scheme. So it goes back to the notes that I have from the sim this week. But overall, I think the sim proves out an interesting point that we have here. So the sim produced some kind of weird results. First of all, I ran the sims again this week with Mertz starting and with Lagway starting, even though I know Lagway's not going to start in all likelihood. But I ran them with both just to kind of see the different performances. NCAA 25 does not understand the capabilities that DJ has as a passer, clearly, because the passing yard differences we saw were significantly less for him versus Mertz. And I just don't think that's accurate in this offense, as we saw, frankly, from this weekend. Not just because of who we were playing, but just the throws that he's capable of making. So I'm not going to take away anything from any of the stats, any of the numbers, any of the results of the game, except this. The winner in 19 of 20 games, and there's a caveat for the one that it didn't happen in, every time the winning team, no matter who it was, had more time of possession in every single game, with the exception of one. And that one exception was a game that was decided in overtime, and the losing team, who had more time of possession, had 2 turnovers to the other team having 0. Or I'm sorry, might have been the other way around there. No, yeah, they had 2 turnovers to the other team having 0. That's what it was. So the turnovers were the difference maker in why the time of possession did not win the game for them, because they gave the ball up. Very, very interesting. So there were multiple games where there were turnovers, obviously, but the swing being 2, right, to 0 is what caused that particular outcome to be different. And again, it had to go to overtime to get sorted out that way. So time of possession, very interesting stat to keep an eye on this week. I think that's the biggest thing I took away from the results that I saw. And if you notice our stats, if you hold them to better third down, or we're better on third down conversions than they are, even if neither one is great, if we're better, theoretically, we should possess the ball more, right? If we keep them from running the ball too much, right, that theoretically helps our time of possession. And if we get our offensive numbers up over 350 yards, that should mean we're possessing the ball more, right? So it all goes back to possessing the ball more. That was the overall theme that I kept throughout this, or was trying to keep throughout this, at least to a degree, because I think time of possession is actually going to be really crucial in this game. Texas A&M likes to run the ball. Connor Wegman has not shown himself to be any kind of a dangerous threat behind center as of yet. Not yet anyway in this offense. Maybe he becomes one, but he hasn't yet. I think running is the key to their game. If we hold that in check, I think it's going to be very hard for them to sustain drives and therefore score points. And I think that gives us the opportunity to do very much the opposite, and kind of work the ball down the field. I think this is a game where working the ball down the field methodically, at least on some drives, is to our benefit because we want to run time of possession. So those are my takeaways from the Sims this week. Interesting. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, man. So first of all, interesting metrics. I dig it. I'll take it. I know that I said it last, I'll say it again. I'm worried about third and Napier. And
yes, me too.
And I'm worried about the time of possession because last year when it seemed like we had those longer methodical drives to eat up some clock, we have proven opposite this year. So either way, I don't think Connor Wegman's going to be him. And so therefore we have the opportunity there to really get him mixed up in that pass rush and hopefully put some good pressure on him. They're going to try and put some workload on their running back, and they're going to get frustrated because we're going to come ready to stop that line. And so either way, should be a phenomenal matchup, but I just worry about that us in third down on offense more so than defense. That's my biggest thorn on my side.
I would agree, and I don't want to see us in too many third and longs for sure. That would not be to our advantage. This is a good defense that we're going to play. Mike Elko knows what he's doing on defense as a head coach. Obviously, Jay Bateman knows the offense that he's playing against. Unfortunately, Jay Bateman was our linebackers coach last year. Now the D coordinator at Florida West. That's the reason they're Florida West, or one of the many reasons, right? We have defenders that are playing on that team that played on our defense last year, so they know things that we like to do, players that we have, right? There's going to be a lot of things that are going to make them effective against us on defense when we have the ball. So we need to do things that we don't typically do, not run all the same plays we ran for Miami, show some of the stuff we ran this week, right? You're sensing a theme here, right? Moreover, as we talked about earlier, it is going to be really important for Napier to put Lagway in the game to a significant amount. We mentioned it earlier, but he's got to play some. And there's really just no reason not to play him at least a decent amount. There's no reason not to. And that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
We don't have cause at this point. I mean, again, what are we really playing for here, right, at this point? I know it's early in the season, but we know the schedule. We know the opponents. We know where we're at. We know we have a ceiling here, right? I mean, I could make an argument that maybe 8-4 is still the ceiling, but it's tough at this point. And I think it's probably 7-5 now, right? We picked 7-5. I don't know that that's still in play, but I think it is. I think it's still in play. But that's probably as good as we're going to do at this point, like looking at what this team looked like. I mean, unless there is some significant improvement that continues to happen. We saw improvement this week. If we see that kind of improvement again this week and beyond, okay, maybe. But that's what it would take, and that doesn't feel likely. It just doesn't. You don't typically see that. So maybe we'll get surprised. Hope for the best, plan for the worst, right? But it doesn't feel like that's probable. Right. So if we're being realistic about this, what are we playing for? Right. We're playing for continued improvement throughout the season, continued growth and development, and movement into next year. Well, who's your quarterback next year? I love Graham, but it ain't him. Bingo. So why aren't we going to give Lagway the chance to at least get more meaningful snaps this year? Right. I'm not saying he has to start every game. I'm not saying he has to play, 2-3 quarters every game. But he's got to get some more meaningful snaps than, 4 or 5 plays or even 10 plays. He's got to get out there more than that. So that's my take on it. I think he needs to be in there at least 12 to 15 snaps a game minimum. And wow. I hope that's what we see. But I don't know. I don't know that it's going to be. And frankly, I don't think it's going to be, but fingers crossed.
It's funny you read my mind because I was going to ask you how many snaps are you thinking you want to see DJ, but 12 to 15 it
12
is.
to,
Fair
12 to 15. I mean, we're averaging right now. Well, the first game, you got to kind of throw it out. What we do this past game? 64 offensive snaps, I think.
Yeah.
So 15's what? That's not even 25%, right?
Mm-hmm.
So give me 15 snaps. 12 again. 12 to 15, depending on how many snaps we get on offense. But I don't know. What do you want? What are you after snap count wise?
My number's over 15, but under 20. So
Okay.
I'm anywhere between 16 to 20.
That'd be high. I mean, you'd be talking a third of the game at that point in all likelihood, because we're probably going to be somewhere around 61, 62 snaps on offense, I think, with the way the games are now. They move a little faster. I think that's likely because they put that with some of that running clock stuff they did and everything else. So yeah.
I get that, but the other thing I want to see as well is if Graham is still shook, if Graham's not in rhythm, if Graham can't complete a pass to save his life,
so yes,
I do expect that shift, right, to happen.
Yes. Now that's another conversation for sure. And I think this is the risk that Billy runs. So we'll close with this thought before we sign off here. I think the risk Billy runs by putting Graham back out there is when you've just seen what Lagway did, right?
Yeah.
You know the fan base is already frothing at the mouth for Lagway and unfortunately frothing at the mouth for Billy's job if he doesn't, do this right. And obviously the fan base doesn't get to decide. We know that. But we talked about that a few episodes back, right? It's not up to them or the media. It's up to the powers that be internally. But at the end of the day, if you make the wrong move here, right, and you start Graham, and he looks like he did against Miami, and then you, continue to play him, right, that's a mistake. That's just a mistake, and it's one you may not probably won't recover from, quite frankly. But you take a risk in even doing it. Because while there might be a risk in playing Lagway as far as wins and losses go, I think you buy goodwill by playing him. And I don't think you really hurt your chances to win that much. I just don't. I don't see it. Like, I don't see where that kid, the way he played on Saturday, hurts your chances to win. And he certainly doesn't hurt your chances to keep your job. So I don't really get it. To be honest with you. And unless we see something, again, very different out of Graham than what we saw game one, which again, anybody who listens to us, we love Graham on this pod. Like, we are not anti-Mertz in any way. We love him. But from what we saw the other night, I don't see how he's the better chance to win just from an ability standpoint. I just don't see it. And so I'm a little disappointed that he's going to be the starter, quite frankly. Not because I don't love him, but just because I don't think it's probably the best chance that you have to win the game. I think Lagway gives you that. Any other thoughts you got on that?
No, I mean that pretty much sums it up. And I think a lot of Gator Nation is feeling that very same sentiment.
I mean, at the end of the day, as much as we like Graham, he didn't have theme music.
I mean, graham cracker. I mean, what do you expect me to play? Like a Honey Graham commercial for s'mores? Like, I don't know.
I mean, we could have found something probably, but it wasn't as inspired to do so. Sorry, it just wasn't. So it is what it is, right?
Correct.
So, but with that, man, I think that probably brings us to the close here. So we'll wrap this up and here's hoping for next week, because we need this one. We really do, Gator Nation. It's gonna be an important game for sure. So here's to the best.
Very important game. Florida West coming to town, Aggie Nation, whatever you want to call it. But we are wrapping up episode 31 of My Two Bits. I'll tell you what, wherever you are, wherever you may be listening, thank you for taking the time, and we will see you around, Gator Nation.